Wilmington, North Carolina, Eric Werner Johansson, 59, a Morrisville resident, was sentenced today to 150 months in prison and 20 years of supervised release for sharing child pornography on dark web chat rooms. On March 8, 2022, the defendant pled guilty to transportation and possession of child pornography. According to court documents and other information presented in court, agents with the Department of Homeland Security discovered a chat room on the dark web dedicated to child pornography. Using an explicit username, Johansson was observed in the chat room uploading links that connected to images of child pornography. In addition, Johansson was discussing his sexual arousal of such materials and fantasizing about sexually abusing children. The investigation revealed that Homeland Security agents, as well as Wake County Sheriff's Office deputies and the State Bureau of Investigation, executed a search warrant at Johansson's residence on November 4, 2020. He admitted to viewing child sexual abuse material for a period of 10 years. He admitted he had posted links to child pornography and had discussed his fantasies about sexually abusing children. Johansson further admitted being sexually aroused by child pornography. A forensic examination of his digital devices revealed over 1,400 images and 30 videos of child sexual abuse material. These images and files included depictions of infants and toddlers being sexually abused and sadistic and masochistic conduct. Michael Easley, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, made the announcement after the sentencing hearing was concluded. Chief U.S. District Judge Richard E. Myers II presided over the case. The Department of Homeland Security, Wake County Sheriff's Office, and the State Bureau of Investigation investigated the case, and Assistant U.S. Attorney Charity Wilson prosecuted the case. This case was brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, a nationwide initiative to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse, launched in May 2006 by the Department of Justice. Led by U.S. Attorneys' Offices and the Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section, COs, Project Safe Childhood marshals federal, state, and local resources to better locate, apprehend, and prosecute individuals who exploit children via the Internet, as well as to identify and rescue victims. For more information about Project Safe Childhood, please visit www.justice.gov/psc. Related court documents and information can be found on the website of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of North Carolina or on PACER by searching for case number 5:21CR00389M1. Peoria, Illinois, a normal Illinois man, Jaquan Howard, 29, of the 1100 block of Wartburg Drive, was sentenced on July 21, 2022, to 120 months imprisonment, followed by 10 years of supervised release for sex trafficking of a minor. Howard must also register as a sex offender. At the sentencing hearing before U.S. District Court Judge James Shadid, the government presented evidence that in April 2019, Howard trafficked a minor girl into prostitution. Howard rented hotel rooms in the Peoria area, transported the girl to the hotels, and gave her controlled substances. He used online advertisements to solicit men to the hotel rooms to have sex with the girl and then collected payment for the act. Sex trafficking is modern-day slavery, said U.S. Attorney Gregory K. Harris. Sex trafficking is particularly harmful when it involves minor children, as in this case. There is zero tolerance for sex traffickers in the Central District of Illinois, and we will work tirelessly to bring these predators to justice. The FBI and our law enforcement partners work every day to shut down sex traffickers and deliver justice for victims, said FBI Springfield Field Office Acting Special Agent in Charge Shannon Fontenot. While this sentence effectively ends Jaquan Howard's ability to sexually exploit children, the damage caused by this crime can linger for a lifetime for the victim. The FBI remains constant in our commitment to provide resources for victims to assist in the healing process. Howard was indicted in February 2020 and entered a guilty plea in April 2022. He has remained in the custody of the U.S. Marshals Service. The statutory penalties for sex trafficking a minor are 10 years to life imprisonment, followed by 5 years to life of supervised release. A fine of up to $250,000 may also be imposed. The Bloomington Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Springfield Field Office investigated the case with assistance of the McLean County State's Attorney's Office. Assistant U.S. Attorney Keith Hollingshead Cook represented the government in the prosecution. Fresno, California, a federal jury convicted Christopher George Milliken, 28, of Coalinga, on Thursday for producing and receiving child pornography via the popular app, Snapchat, U.S. Attorney Philip A. Talbert announced. According to court documents and evidence introduced during the trial, in July 2018, a parent reported to Snapchat that someone, later identified as Milliken, had been engaging in inappropriate communications with an 11-year-old girl. Snapchat reviewed Milliken's account and discovered images and videos depicting minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Snapchat reported the conduct to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which then contacted the Central California Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force in Fresno. Investigators identified several minors, and one of them testified at the trial that Milliken had coerced her into creating and sending him sexually explicit images. At the time of the offense conduct, Milliken was on active duty with the U.S. Navy. The conviction in this case means that the defendant will no longer be in a position to carry out his criminal acts against innocent and vulnerable children, said U.S. Attorney Talbert. The U.S. Attorney's Office will continue to work tirelessly with its federal and local law enforcement partners to protect and seek justice for these young victims. Safeguarding children from predators is a top priority for Homeland Security investigations, said HSI San Francisco/NorCal Special Agent in Charge Tatum King. HSI is committed to working with local, state, and federal partners to relentlessly pursue anyone involved in criminal behavior against children. This case is the product of an investigation by the Central California Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, composed of Homeland Security Investigations, the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, the Fresno Police Department, the U.S. Naval Criminal Investigative Service, the Hanford Police Department, and several local police agencies across the United States. Assistant U.S. Attorney David Gappa and Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section Trial Attorney Nadia Prinz are prosecuting the case. Milliken is scheduled to be sentenced by U.S. District Judge Dale A. Drozd on October 24, 2022. Milliken faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison and a maximum prison term of 50 years. He also faces a potential $250,000 fine for each count and a potential lifetime term of supervised release. The actual sentence, however, will be determined at the discretion of the court after consideration of any applicable statutory factors and the federal sentencing guidelines, which take into account a number of variables. Madison, Wisconsin, a Fenimore, Wisconsin man is charged with producing and possessing child pornography in an indictment returned on July 13, 2022, by a federal grand jury sitting in Madison. The charges are announced by Timothy M. O'Shea, United States Attorney for the Western District of Wisconsin. The indictment charges James C. Gibson, 53, with 4 counts of using minors to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction of the conduct. The indictment alleges that Gibson used a cellular phone to produce the child pornography on 4 occasions between January 2020 and September 2021. The indictment also charges Gibson with 1 count of possessing child pornography. The indictment alleges that on November 8, 2021, he possessed a cellular phone containing visual depictions of minors engaging in sexually explicit conduct. The indictment further alleges that at least one of the depictions was of a minor who had not attained 12 years of age. The indictment was unsealed following Gibson's arrest Wednesday, July 27, at Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming by the U.S. Marshals Service, pursuant to an arrest warrant issued at the time the indictment was returned. Gibson made an initial appearance in U.S. District Court in Mammoth, Wyoming yesterday and remains in federal custody. An identity and detention hearing is scheduled for August 2nd in federal court in Wyoming. If convicted, Gibson faces a mandatory minimum penalty of 15 years and a maximum of 30 years in federal prison on each production charge and a maximum of 20 years on the possession charge. The charges against Gibson are the result of an investigation by the Fenimore Police Department, Wisconsin Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation, U.S. Marshals Service Great Lakes Regional Fugitive Task Force, and the U.S. Marshals Service in the District of Wyoming and Southern District of Illinois, with the assistance of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Wyoming. Assistant U.S. Attorney Laura Przybylinski Finn is handling the prosecution. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christine Martins is handling the court appearances in Wyoming. You are advised that a charge is merely an accusation and that a defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. Honolulu, United States District Judge Leslie E. Kobayashi yesterday sentenced Aaron Anthony Hood, 45, of Honolulu, Hawaii, to 10 years of imprisonment and 25 years of supervised release for one count of possession of child pornography. Hood previously pleaded guilty to the child pornography offense on September 17, 2019. In his plea agreement, Hood admitted that from on or about January 23, 2016, to January 27, 2016, he knowingly possessed at least one video of child pornography. The video was approximately 19 minutes long and depicted a 14-year-old female engaged in sexually explicit conduct with Hood. The video was produced using a cell phone. During Hood's contacts with the 14-year-old minor, he also supplied her with drugs and alcohol. Hood's crimes threatened the overall safety of our community, said U.S. Attorney Claire E. Connors. Sexually exploitive crimes targeting children carry significant prison penalties and will be vigorously prosecuted by our office. Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, is committed to protecting our community from predators, said John F. Tabone, HSI Special Agent in charge. We will continue to identify and prosecute those responsible for committing these heinous offenses. Jacksonville, Florida, United States Attorney Roger B. Handberg announces that Garrett Eric Weber, 31, Green Cove Springs, has pleaded guilty to attempting to entice and use a 9-year-old child to produce videos of the child being sexually abused. Weber faces a minimum mandatory penalty of 15 years and up to 30 years in federal prison and a potential lifetime term of supervised release. Weber was arrested on a federal warrant by the Green Cove Springs Police Department during a traffic stop on July 5, 2021, and he has been detained since that time. His sentencing hearing has not yet been scheduled. According to court documents, in 2020, Weber, using the name Bubbles_90, uploaded an image depicting the sexual abuse of a child to a chat group on a popular social media application, app. This upload was eventually detected by law enforcement officers in Wisconsin. Further investigation by the FBI ultimately resulted in the identification of Weber. In March 2021, an undercover FBI agent, posing as the parent of a young child, engaged in online conversation with Weber using the app. After some discussion and being told that the child was 9 years old, Weber offered to serve as the child's trainer by engaging in sexual activity with the child. He requested that the parent take an explicit photo of the child for him and provided specific instructions on how to accomplish it. Weber advised that he wanted the parent to film him as he sexually abused the child, and that the resulting recording would be the best child pornography vid ever. Weber sent the parent several videos over the internet that depicted the sexual abuse of young children to demonstrate exactly how he planned to molest the child. After his arrest, Weber admitted to FBI agents that he was in fact Bubbles_90, that he had engaged in extremely descriptive and horrible online conversations with the child's parent, and that he had distributed videos of very young children being sexually abused using the internet. Weber acknowledged that the evidence is staggeringly harsh against him in this case. This case was investigated by the Green Cove Springs Police Department, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, the Winnebago County, Wisconsin, Sheriff's Office, the Clay County Sheriff's Office, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Milwaukee and Jacksonville, with assistance from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC. It is being prosecuted by Assistant United States Attorney D. Rodney Brown. This is another case brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, a nationwide initiative launched in May 2006 by the Department of Justice to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse. Led by the United States Attorney's Offices and the Criminal Division's Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section, Project Safe Childhood marshals federal, state, and local resources to locate, apprehend, and prosecute individuals who sexually exploit children, and to identify and rescue victims. For more information about Project Safe Childhood, please visit www.justice.gov/psc. Philadelphia, United States Attorney Jacqueline C. Romero announced that Valentine Ortiz, 73, of Reading, Pennsylvania, was sentenced to 5 years and 11 months in prison, 5 years of supervised release, and was ordered to pay $10,000 restitution by United States District Court Judge John M. Gallagher for repeatedly traveling to the Dominican Republic to engage in a sexual relationship with a 12-year-old child, with whom he eventually fathered 2 children. In November 2021, the defendant pleaded guilty to 1 count of travel and foreign commerce with the intent to engage in illicit sexual conduct, and 2 counts of engaging in illicit sexual conduct in a foreign place. The charges arose from an investigation which began when the defendant, a naturalized United States citizen, applied to bring his spouse to the U.S. by filing paperwork with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, in June 2018. The defendant listed August 2013 as the date of their marriage, when his spouse and victim was 18 and he was 65 years old. Investigators discovered that beginning in 2007, when the defendant was 59 and the victim was just 12 years old, he pursued and maintained a sexual relationship with her when he traveled to the Dominican Republic. This ongoing illicit sexual relationship led to the victim becoming pregnant with their 2 children when she was 13 and 15 years old, respectively. Valentine Ortiz is a sexual predator who targeted a very young and vulnerable victim, traveling internationally so he could prey on this child without the same legal consequences as he might face in the United States, said U.S. Attorney Romero. But as a U.S. citizen, he is prohibited from engaging in such abhorrent conduct abroad, and accordingly, he has now been held accountable for his crimes. Catching international predators requires international reach. When it comes to these types of cases, Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, is a premier U.S. government agency working to track, arrest, and convict these appalling criminals, said William S. Walker, special agent in charge for the HSI Philadelphia field office. This case shows how HSI Philadelphia, along with our colleagues in the Dominican Republic, collaborated closely and stopped at nothing in pursuit of a dangerous sexual predator of children. A man who discussed child sex abuse online was sentenced today to 20 years in federal prison for distributing sexually explicit images of minors, announced U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas Chad E. Meacham. Jacob Corey Penton, 30, was indicted in January. He pleaded guilty in March to receipt and distribution of child pornography and was sentenced Thursday by U.S. District Judge James Wesley Hendricks. Through this sentencing, we have removed another threat from our community, sharing a message with our law enforcement partners that we are committed to aggressively pursuing anyone who seeks to exploit the innocence of our children, said Christopher Miller, acting special agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations' Dallas Field Office. We will continue to devote our law enforcement resources to investigate and bring to justice those who victimize children through the heinous crimes and trauma associated with the production and distribution of child sexual abuse materials. According to plea papers, the investigation began when law enforcement received a tip stating that Mr. Penton had discussed his sexual attraction to children on an encrypted chat app. In messages, he stated that he had sexually assaulted a minor. Agents analyzed Mr. Penton's Kik account and found 15 pornographic images of children as young as 4 being sexually abused. In plea papers, he admitted he shared some of the videos with other Kik users shortly after he received them. Homeland Security Investigations' Dallas field office conducted the investigation. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Callie Willam and Stephen Rancourt prosecuted the case. Philadelphia, United States Attorney Jacqueline C. Romero announced that William Watts, Sr., 56, of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, pleaded guilty before United States District Court Judge Joel H. Slomsky to the charges of receiving and possessing child pornography. In June 2022, the defendant was charged by information with child exploitation offenses. The FBI arrested the defendant in October 2021 after investigating a cyber tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. At the time of his arrest, the defendant was a police officer in Philadelphia's 1st Police District and had amassed a collection of hundreds of images of child pornography between his online accounts and electronic devices. Watts has since resigned his position with the department, and as a result of his conviction, he faces a sentence of up to 40 years in prison, lifetime supervised release, and mandatory restitution of at least $3,000 per child victim, and other fines and penalties. Watts remains incarcerated at the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia pending sentencing. Watts has admitted to seeking out videos of children being abused for his own gratification, thus adding to the demand for these types of images to be produced and more children to be victimized, said U.S. Attorney Romero. Our office and our law enforcement partners are committed to doing the difficult work of investigating and prosecuting these heinous crimes in order to hold people like this defendant accountable, no matter their position in the community or occupation. That William Watts repeatedly broke the law while sworn to uphold it is disappointing, said Jacqueline McGuire, special agent in charge of the FBI's Philadelphia division. That he was collecting images of children being sexually abused is disturbing. All those who seek out this despicable material are perpetuating the victimization of innocent children. That's why the FBI so doggedly pursues these cases. Protecting kids from this physical and emotional trauma is our priority. Baltimore, Maryland, Matthew K. Walsh, age 24, of Baltimore, Maryland, pleaded guilty today to sexual exploitation of a minor in order to produce child pornography. Specifically, Walsh admitted that he created fictitious online profiles purporting to be a minor female to contact and induce minor males between the ages of 12 and 17 to send sexually explicit images and videos the individual they believed to be a minor female, but was, in fact, Walsh. The guilty plea was announced by United States Attorney for the District of Maryland Eric L. Barron, Special Agent in Charge Thomas J. Sobocinski of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Baltimore Field Office, and Commissioner Michael Harrison of the Baltimore Police Department. According to his plea agreement, from at least 2016 through 2021, Walsh created fictitious profiles on several online platforms posing as a minor female to make contact with minor males between the ages of 12 and 17 to induce them to produce sexually explicit images and videos to send to the purported minor female. Once Walsh obtained the sexually explicit images and videos, he extorted the minor males into producing more sexually explicit images and videos at his instruction and threatened that if they failed to do so, Walsh would send the previously provided images and videos to the minor victims' friends, family, and classmates. Walsh directed the minor males to send him the images and videos he directed them to produce, and that the images and videos needed to include their face. In some of the communications, by text, email, and video, the minor victims are crying and begging Walsh not to send the images and videos to their families and classmates, to leave them alone, and not to make them do more, but Walsh persisted with his threats and demands. Walsh admitted that he harassed some of the victims for years and obtained hundreds of files depicting sexually explicit conduct from some of the victims. In total, Walsh obtained approximately 2,000 images and videos depicting sexually explicit conduct of the various minor males. As detailed in the plea agreement, once Walsh received the sexually explicit files from the victims, he saved them into folders of fake names or a variation of the victim's real name in a cloud storage account. Walsh also uploaded the minor males' files to various Twitter accounts and sold the sexually explicit files of the minors to others, obtaining approximately $8,000 from the sale of the files. Specifically, Walsh communicated with at least 50 different Twitter users interested in purchasing either individual files of child sex abuse material, CSAM, or Walsh's collections of CSAM. The collections contained over 100 different victims' files. In several messages, the Twitter users were aware that some of the individuals in the sexually explicit files were as young as 14 years old. Several Twitter users exchanged tips with Walsh on how to evade law enforcement and discussed methods for enticing and extorting victims' nude images and videos. Walsh was also a member of online groups which included other offenders who would post, sell, and trade CSAM. During the investigation, federal search warrants were executed on 17 Google accounts, 22 Twitter accounts, 4 Facebook accounts, 7 Instagram accounts, 6 Snap accounts, 3 Dropbox accounts, 3 TextNow accounts, a Kik account, an Apple account, and an Oath/Yahoo account, all created and utilized by Walsh. To date, over 40 minor males have been positively identified as victims of Walsh's conduct. At least 30 victims' pictures and videos were sold and/or distributed to others by Walsh. Walsh faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in federal prison and a maximum of 30 years in federal prison for production of child pornography. As required by his plea agreement, Walsh will make full restitution to all minor victims of his offenses as to all counts charged, whether or not he has entered a guilty plea to those counts. As a consequence of Walsh's conviction, upon his release from prison, Walsh will be required to register as a sex offender in the place where he resides, is an employee, and is a student, pursuant to the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, SORNA. U.S. District Judge Ellen L. Hollander has scheduled sentencing for November 4, 2022 at 11 a.m.